Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. Welcome to the fifth session of the MIT ILP Digital Transformation webinar series. My name is Graham Rong. I'm the Director of Corporate Relations at MIT. MIT Corporate Relations is a chief gateway for industry to access to MIT and MIT connected startups. Today, I'm your host of this session. As you know, COVID-19 has accelerated the digital transformation. It impacts every aspect of our work and life. We have seen 2 years worth of work of transformation in 2 months in some organizations. But what does digital transformation mean to your organization and to your business? How can we stay on the top of these rapid changes during and post the pandemic? Today's session will feature 2 MIT professors who focus on the research of digital learning, IoT, social technologies, data analytics, and business transformation. Each speaker will talk for 55 minutes, including Q&A. So please ask questions and also vote on them. For those first-time participants, in addition to the session today, the webinar series details can be found on our website, ilp.mit.edu, under the Attend and then Webinar tab. All the sessions will be recorded, and the recording will be available on the same website. For those currently with your computer, at the bottom of your screen, you can see several icons. Please use Q&A icon to ask questions and to vote on them. Chat icon is reserved for technical questions with the organizers. Professor Sanjay Sarma. He is a professor of mechanical engineering at MIT and vice president for open learning. He co-founded the Auto ID Center at MIT and developed many of the key technologies behind RFID standards now used worldwide. As an entrepreneur, he was the founder and CTO of Alt Systems. He serves on the boards and advisory boards of many organizations and companies. In all his endeavors, Professor Sarma has been at the forefront of technologies now known as the Internet of Things. MITx, which reports to Professor Sarma at MIT, delivers revolutionary, massive open online courses to millions of students around the world, straight from the cloud. He is the co-author of a recent award-winning book, The Inversion Factor: How to Thrive in the IoT Economy, and also an upcoming book, Grasp, about the science transforming how we learn. With that, let's welcome Professor Sarma.
Thank you very much, Graham. First of all, it's such a pleasure to be with you, even though these are very tragic times. The United States right now has a crisis within a crisis within a crisis. We have COVID as the envelope. We have massive unemployment and devastation to retail and small businesses and many large companies within that. And then, of course, within all that, we have social unrest because of the tragic circumstances in Minneapolis. So the question is, how does one deal with a crisis like this? And what I'm going to do today is talk for a few minutes about digital transformation in a time of COVID. So, so my quick sort of summary of all this to get going is that COVID is the Apollo 13 moment for all of us. It has suddenly shocked us into action, and we've had to figure out how to create a future that we've been suddenly thrust into. If you take the digital transformation in the time of COVID, the first thing we need to understand is what's going on philosophically right now. It's very interesting what's going on. What we are under attack with right now is a computer program, except this computer program isn't written in C++ or C, it's written in nucleotides. And this computer program, what it does is it surreptitiously enters the host, and then it reprograms it to produce more copies. And this computer program then launches itself in tiny packets called droplets that we breathe, and enters a next host. And then it reprograms their cells, and that's how it goes viral. So in a very ironic way, when we say something going viral, and when we call something a computer virus, what COVID has figured out is precisely how to do that to human beings. Of course, as you know, the word computer virus comes from human viruses. I think that happened in 1972. But COVID has figured out the secret formula because it has figured out a second feature that other viruses never did, and which is stealth. And the more deadly viruses are the ones that are most stealthy. So COVID, ladies and gentlemen, is a cybersecurity attack on the human population. And what it takes advantage of is the network. And what network? The social network. And it is breaking that down. So the reason we are right now remote is because it took advantage of the social network, and we have to be socially distanced. It's sort of like turning off the Wi-Fi in your laptop for fear, or getting off the network for fear of being infected. So it's a very ironic twist of fate and I'll talk about cybersecurity as well, that COVID has attacked the human animal precisely in the place the human animal is special, which is our socialness. Now, the attack of COVID has led to this Apollo 13 moment, as I said, where we've had to suddenly rethink ourselves, our societies, our cultures, everything. So, for example, we've all gone remote. We're using Zoom, WebEx, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, and so on. And the extent of this across humanity is unprecedented. Before, when we first thought about this presentation, I was going to talk about Internet of Things, and I was going to talk about digital transformation. And I feel that it's almost trite to talk about that, given what we're going through right now. The number of employers worldwide who've gone remote. I was talking this morning to someone in a large consulting firm who's based in India. And the number of people they've moved out of offices for 3 months at a time is absolutely incredible. And the number of people are actually thinking of not bringing their employees back for a year, or perhaps even ever having them work remotely, is also pretty staggering. So right now, in the sudden crisis, entire companies are going through an Apollo 13 rethinking of the way they work, and they're succeeding. We have stretched everything to the limit. The internet is stretched to the limit. The supply chain is stretched to the limit. The internet is sort of holding up. The supply chain sort of broke, as we found out with, for example, the availability of masks and medical and personal protective equipment for doctors. But the way it's manifesting itself is also pretty staggering. So this slide shows you the valuation of Zoom, the company, compared to the top 7 airlines combined. And as you can see, Zoom is valued more than Southwest, Delta, United, Lufthansa. IAG is I think it includes British or Iberian, American, and Air France combined. This is one piece of software which we're all hanging by. So we are actually going through right now, I wouldn't even call it a digital transformation. We're going through what I would consider to be a digital transmutation, where we completely mutate and change the way we work in order to be able to work and be competitive in the 21st century. And in fact, we're doing it in a way where anecdotally, what we're hearing is productivity has gone up in quite a few places. Of course, for a lot of other places, productivity has plummeted. if you're a doctor in a hospital and you work on, for example, urology, all the elective surgeries, all the hospital visits have been delayed. But on the other hand, if you work in the knowledge economy, in the digital economy, and in companies that were not traditionally in knowledge or digital economies, but morphed and became much more digital, then productivity has gone up. So it's a sort of a fascinating time for us to examine, our condition. Part of this is that we had prepared a long time ago for work from anywhere, which is working from an airport, working from a hotel. And suddenly we are stuck working from home. And the work from anywhere, we're using it as a crutch to work from home. So we've survived because of work from anywhere. So that's the state of the situation right now. Now, because of COVID, I'm going to spend just a few minutes talking about the state of COVID itself. MIT happens to be at the forefront of many aspects of it, but they're really, from the medical situation, they're really four fronts. I'll put them up there because they're also relevant to the next slide I'll talk about, which is going back to work in the era of COVID. So the first is testing. As you know, many countries fumbled testing. And there are actually two types of testing, as you probably know, viral testing and antibody testing. A viral testing tests to see if you're sick. Antibody testing looks for immunoglobulins, which are markers that you have been sick. IgG, IgM, et cetera, et cetera. Antibody testing is more done on a statistical basis to see if what portion of the population has fallen sick and gotten better. But really, viral testing is the most important topic from a going back to work perspective. And eventually, antibody testing will tell us if we have herd immunity. And in viral testing, you got to look at accuracy, convenience, and speed. Accuracy, because a lot of tests are actually not accurate. And a false negative is sometimes worse because you feel comfortable with this person coming into the office, but they're actually sick. And remember, this is a stealth virus. Convenience, a lot of these tests are quite painful. And they take a swab, and it's called a nasopharyngeal swab. It goes in through the nose and gets a sample from deep inside. But soon we'll go to things like saliva samples, which is much easier. And then finally, speed. Once you do the test, if you can get the results quickly, then you can quarantine people quickly, and there's less threat of risk of spread. But in the absence of testing or in delayed testing, you've got to go hold people in quarantine until the results are confirmed. If the accuracy is bad, people are still quarantining for 2 weeks, which sort of defeats the purpose. Then there's another industry, which is pure technology that has spun up, which is contact tracing. It can be done with GPS, it can be done with Bluetooth, and with other RF, for example, with ultra-wideband. There are actually two approaches to this: privacy preserving and centralized. Privacy preserving is what Apple, Google are doing, which is that your privacy is preserved. The government doesn't know whether you've been exposed or fallen sick. But then in many countries, they're using a centralized approach where the government surveils you. And that depends on one's philosophical bent. The third is therapeutics. So therapeutics is, how do you treat it? We haven't had the time to really invent new therapies. Most people are repurposing existing therapies. HIV medications, for example, or remdesivir, which was developed for Ebola in the previous pandemic that we worry about. And now there are new things like blood plasma. When someone recovers, can you use their antibodies? And something called monoclonal antibodies, which I think is very promising. And if you have the time, you should read it. And finally, of course, there's a stunning array of vaccines being developed. And there are many, many categories. There's a very nice Nature article on it. And the viruses are either you take an existing virus, you take a viral vector, you inject a nucleic acid, or use a protein-based virus. There are 110 viral efforts around the world, and some of the vaccine manufacturers, like the biggest in the world is a company called Serum Institute in India. They're actually going to manufacture the vaccine before it gets approved, so that if and when it gets approved, they can deliver. So it's sort of extraordinary effort going into all this. So it's a fascinating sort of medical situation. I present this because I'm going to use this as a framework for basically the rest of the presentation. The medical situation will abate over the course of the next 18 months. But the point is that the world will have changed permanently. And everything that Graham talked about, everything I'm going to be talking about, everything I plan to talk about is going to be impacted by this. So how do we go back to work? Well, slowly, various countries are opening up. We are nowhere near herd immunity. Herd immunity occurs when 65% of the population's already been infected and recovered. And right now, we're even in a kind of city like Madrid, 5-10%. So we have plenty of distance to go. So a cornerstone of going back to work is testing, testing, testing. And again, the same three factors: accuracy, convenience, and speed. Now, as I said, there are new tests like saliva test, et cetera, will make testing hopefully more convenient and faster. But then the second piece of going back to work is contact tracing. So contact tracing is when someone falls sick, you identify all the people who've been exposed and you track them down, make sure they're well. If not, you quarantine them and you try and trap the virus before it spreads. Now, the problem with contact tracing is that it is very hard to track down everyone. And so in the early stages of the contact tracing approach, they used personal phone calls. Whom did you meet? Whom were you with? But in this, and now with several million people who've been infected, it is going to be impossible to do this with personal phone calls. So first we went through the lockdown to reduce the number of infections and to identify them. And now hopefully the numbers are smaller. And so now we'll do software. I talked about contact tracing earlier, but there are three approaches: GPS-based, Bluetooth-based, other RF. Other RF means things like ultra-wideband. I've already talked about privacy preserving and centralized. A third aspect of the software is going to be attestation. And what I mean by that is health visas. If you've already been sick and you've recovered, you're a superwoman or a superman. And that's something you want to put on your phone so that it's going to be like a country visa. It's going to be a travel visa, a work visa, etc. And if you've been tested like yesterday, then the likelihood that you're sick today is very low. That will also be on your phone. So, different airlines, different countries, different regions will have different policies, but proof of test is going to be a very central thing. And right now there are many different softwares, but they will all have to merge. It'll have to become sort of a global passport visa that we all sort of agree to. It has privacy implications, social implications, but there's also no way around it. So that's what's going to happen on the software front. A lot of work on hygiene. You've heard about the masks, et cetera, but the real challenge is going to be, what do you do with a bathroom? And maybe you have to schedule bathroom visits, like you book a conference. So all that is still being worked out. That's all part of the return to work. Same with elevators. You can't have more than 2 people in an elevator. And to manage all that, most likely we will have phased return, which means people who can work from home, and the people who have to come in. You split them into 4 teams. One team comes in, say, Monday morning. Second team comes a second shift. They never interact. Parking is free, so they don't use public transport. But if someone in team 1 falls sick, then the other 3 teams are not exposed. And within team 1, you do contact tracing to sort of shut down the spread. So what you can see here is, in dealing with COVID, we are going to rethink offices. We're going to rethink work from home. We're going to rethink parking. We're going to rethink transportation. We're going to rethink check-in. We're going to rethink access control. We're going to rethink apps. We're going to rethink privacy. So everything is changing in just the next few months. And the crazy thing is that we're going to live this reality for the next 18 months, certainly a year. The vaccines will not arrive before earliest fall of 2020, probably spring of 2021. So humanity will have spent 1 year training for this new reality. Kids will be studying from home, and I'll go through the examples. We'll be working from home. We will be learning to shop differently. Everything is changing. The question is, will we ever go back to the old normal? And my answer to you is no, we won't. We will never go back to the old normal. Of course, we'll do some things we enjoyed, meeting family, meeting friends, having dinner. But we would have learned so many habits that are new and different that will put us in a new thing. So how will things change? Let's talk about that. First of all, education. 1.6 billion students have been separated from their colleges and schools, and many of them are studying online. And I run online education at MIT. I took our team, we took 1,250 courses online. We only missed 4 courses, and they were because the professor couldn't do it for various reasons. We were ready online, and this has created, in my view, a very, very hard to reverse change in education. Unfortunately, many small private liberal arts colleges will die. That's very tragic. A lot of universities are in trouble. And a lot of students at the end of COVID are going to say, well, it worked out quite well. What's special about college? So colleges will have to figure out how to make themselves special. At MIT, it's easy. We have equipment. We have studios where students can perform Shakespeare or learn dance. We have all these things you can do online. But if a university doesn't have something that cannot be done online, it cannot expect its students to come back. And that's going to be a really existential challenge. Now, I have a bunch of examples here, and I'm going to go through them all. But one industry that has gone through a pretty spectacular sort of and sad transformation recently, but a good transformation in some respects over the last 10 years is retail. Retail was already in trouble before COVID came along because of online retail. The bricks and mortar stores were already in trouble because they would become basically showrooms. Purchasers would go in, find something nice, order it on Amazon, and retail sales had gone down. So the retailers fought back by creating in-person services. For example, Barnes and Nobles, has a coffee shop. You can buy children's gifts. It's got a nice ambience. They have book readings, birthday parties, things like that. But most retailers were in trouble to begin with. And then COVID hit, and COVID during lockdowns, people literally cannot go to a retail store, and retailers are still paying rent. So there's going to be devastation in the retail industry. The first apocalypse happened in 2008, 2009. This is going to be the second apocalypse, and retail will never be the same again. The retailers who have done well are the ones who use digital transformation. They used online and on-site as what is called omnichannel retail. So the Walmarts are doing fine. Grocery stores had to stay open, so they have survived, but they weren't ready for this. But the way they have survived is by using companies like Instacart. And in fact, Instacart doesn't ask their permission. I use Instacart. Instacart goes to the local grocery store and provides me service. And you could argue that the grocery stores are actually losing some portion of the revenue because they weren't ready. But the ones who went omni-channel have done very well. So retail is going through a massive transformation. Medicine is going through an extraordinary transformation for 2 reasons. Obviously, this is a Manhattan project to develop new therapeutics, new vaccines for this virus. On the other hand, much of medicine, like the urologist example I explained earlier, has also comes to a standstill. They can't get patients in. Doctors can't see patients if it's all elective surgeries have been postponed. Doctors' appointments have gone on the phone. I have a minor sort of issue, and they shipped the test to me at home. I did the test at home, and I sent it back. So now in the new normal, why would I ever go to a hospital again if I don't have to? Why can't I just talk to the doctor by phone? Unless the doctor needs to do some physical examination. But a lot of doctors' meetings, there's very little physical examination. You can measure your temperature yourself. You can use a wearable. Tests can be shipped home. So we're going to see a massive shift in medicine to telemedicine, as already the medical system is very stressed, and the United States is very expensive. But the scale benefits of this are going to be tremendous. We will also see a rise of IoT. For example, the next version of the Apple Watch is going to have a pulse oximeter. And for COVID, pulse ox is a very important measurement. So you're going to see doctors, my doctors, all my doctors, no one's ever asked me about this, but now they're relying on this to some extent. One of my friends had a fast heartbeat, and he called and told the doctor about how this thing detected it. And finally, the doctor had to look at the data. They've never had to do it, and this is going to change. This has to change. Well, the supply chain is going to go through tremendous changes. lot of interest in local supply chains, a lot of interest in supply chain resiliency, multiple sourcing. Um, Supply chain resiliency means supply chains will, the global supply chain was stress tested during COVID, and the shortage of personal protective equipment, PPEs, in hospitals is a symptom of a supply chain that did not survive the stress test very well. So we will see a very fundamental rethinking of the supply chain with an eye on resilience. In fact, resiliency is going to be a theme that will run through everything in the future. And one thing I'll say is that COVID is a fast forward precursor to climate change. Climate change is like COVID, except much worse and much slower. And I think we will see a greater awareness of sustainability in climate change because of COVID. It'll wake people up to that. Manufacturing, well, that's seeing some tremendous questions. A lot of manufacturing and supply chain had been tweaked to make it hyper efficient, but that level of efficiency means it has no fat, which is good under normal circumstances, except in a crisis. So manufacturing had become very brittle, and when there was a shortage of masks, it was very difficult to repurpose manufacturing to make masks in America and in other countries. So for example, Tesla was trying to make ventilators. GM, the president was trying to get them to make masks, but so we'll see a lot of digital manufacturing as a result, repurposable and nimble manufacturing. Well, work has changed. Work, we will probably never go back to work the way we were. I've already talked about work from home. But also, I think what you will see is a massive increase in the gig economy. With 30, 40 million people out of work, they're flooding into the gig economy. Large companies are not hiring, so large companies will have to depend on these folks. And so you'll see the gig economy take off. So work will become more e-lancing, more freelancing, and more work from home, which will all have a massive impact on commercial real estate, which I'll come to in a second. Well, travel, that's pretty obvious. Now, every meeting, I'm having very important meetings like this one on Zoom. And I think that we've reached a tipping point where Zoom is, as I showed you, the biggest competitor to airlines. The entire travel industry is going to be hit by this. It'll probably take a couple of centuries for the cruise ship industry to come back. But certainly, I think travel is going to be hit. We all know this. Entertainment. Well, you might say, why entertainment? Well, entertainment is going to change tremendously. First of all, obviously, the Netflixes of the world are killing it. Netflix, Apple TV, Amazon Prime, etc. Disney Plus, which launched just before this. But to make things worse, the new Bond movie cannot be released in a theater anytime soon. So they're going to have to figure out what to do. Either they sit with the asset or go to a Netflix. So it's a double win, right? So Hollywood's going to be fundamentally reshaped by this. 10 years ago, Steve Jobs really shook the music industry. I think Hollywood's going to go through the same shakeup. Funnily enough, it was happening before this because Netflix and Amazon were producing content and they were winning awards for it, and they were competing with the production studios. But with this, it accelerates things by 3 or 4 years. So Graham said this, but in many ways, COVID is the great accelerator. Commercial real estate has been absolutely hammered. If people don't go into work, why does a company need to own the office, pay the rent, pay the utilities, the liability, the parking? That's going to be hit. Or the automotive sector is going to be hit because already Uber was hurting the automotive industry. Now, if you don't have to commute to work 4 days a week, is it worth it? You're better off just taking Uber. Maybe one day that you're going, just take the Uber. Now, I have construction there because this is to tee up an exercise, and I'd like you to think about it. I can't do it collectively with everyone, but I will talk through it. It is not a matter of whether your industry will be affected or when. It's a matter of how. Take construction. You might say, well, how is this going to change construction? Well, let me tell you how it's going to change construction. Even before COVID, there was pressure on construction to become much more of a prefab industry. So today, everything comes to the site, you assemble it on site, and it's a little chaotic. But during COVID, because of social distancing, people will be not be permitted to come on. They have to keep a distance. So especially things that can be done offsite will be done offsite, and that is the prefab concept. So construction is going to take a great leap forward. Go IT, go digital, and do prefab. Very, very careful coordination of when things arrive, and then the local stuff is just assembly. So the question really is, you may think, oh no, my industry won't be affected. It will. And the question for you is, how will it be affected, right? Look at this chart. This chart shows, for example, sign-up volume in the week after COVID hit and the lockdown started. I mean, it's staggering. Look at HBO, look at Disney Plus. Now that's a little misleading because Disney Plus had only recently launched. But nonetheless, the amount of increase in sign-up is staggering, right? So if that happens to entertainment, how is it going to impact everyone else? Let's go through that. The key thing, though, is the underpinning of all that is going to be digital capability and resiliency. We are hanging by a thread right now, and that is the digital thread. And this thread, if it snaps, we're all in trouble. This event breaks down. So what you're going to see is a massive investment in communications infrastructure. You'll see 5G take off. Again, this is something that had to happen anyway, but autonomous vehicles meant roads would need 5G. Buildings will need 5G because you need fiber to every floor. Airports will need 5G. Planes will need 5G. Now, if I ever travel again, which I'm sure I will, I want every minute to be productive. I don't want to sit around in an airport waiting. I want to have my laptop in front of me, my headphones on, and I'm working. When I'm in the plane and it's at the gate, I want to be working. I don't want any gaps because I'm losing time. And more, I'm going to work for myself. So fiber to the premises, data hotels, microwave links, the cloud is going to see a huge lift here, because who's going to run all the servers in this world? I mean, who's going to go and reset the servers? So in COVID, people are moving to the cloud. And once the cloud starts taking off, there's no turning back. But cybersecurity is going to be critical because everyone's going to want to hit. Now that we hang by this one thread that is digital, everyone's going to want to hit it. So cybersecurity becomes very important. But I'll talk more about digital transformation. But to me, this is a make or break, one, irreversible move. And the applications of this are enormous. Entertainment, gaming, work from home, work from anywhere. We will go to high fidelity video conferencing, augmented reality, Internet of Things. I mean, people who've been isolated from factories are running them basically remotely with IoT. And autonomy is going to become very big. When people think of autonomy, they think of autonomous driving. And of course, autonomous driving is an important application. But autonomous retail, for example, COVID is driving digital payments because you don't want to touch cash, you don't want to touch a credit card machine. So it's digital payments. So Apple Pay, online, PayPal, Apple Pay, all these things are going to take off. So autonomous retail, autonomous infrastructure, you want the infrastructure to run itself because it reduces costs, it's safer, it's more efficient. And in the time of COVID, we have no choice. It's forcing us to get there. Cities already become somewhat autonomous. Well, you might say, how does a city become autonomous? Well, for example, the Department of Motor Vehicles. I've had to renew my license and renew my registration. We could do this online for years, but now they have no choice. So they're pushing more and more stuff online. But also, utilities, lighting, all that has to go digital. Buildings have to become autonomous. What that means is elevator scheduling. They're already using robots with UVB, which is UVC, ultraviolet C, far ultraviolet C, which is a pretty intense radiation to disinfect buildings. So more and more of that stuff will go autonomous. So that's some of the sort of the setup. So the question that I want to ask now, and I'll go another 5 or 10 minutes and stop, is I challenged you. I said, the question is not whether your industry will be affected. The question is when and how, right? So what I'm going to go through right now is some industries and see how they'll be affected. Let's say you're in resources. Let's say you're in oil production, petroleum. Well, you're going to be affected. Why? Because travel is down. So jet fuel is down. Automotive is down. So fuel is down, right? And actually, that's hurting the Russias, the Saudi Arabias, the Kuwaits of the world very badly. On the other hand, when fuel does come back, people want more clean fuels. So what that means is that natural gas will be up, but maybe not petroleum. So COVID affects oil. Okay. What about accounting? Why would accounting be affected? Well, accounting will be affected because, first of all, there's going to be a lot of divestments. Companies are going to shrink, number one. Number two, companies are going to shed a lot of inventory and assets. They're going to shed, for example, real estate. So there's going to be interesting new business from all this. But then accounting will also have to go remote. And a lot of accounting requires physical signatures, government work, office work. So accounting is going to have to become very digitally capable and resilient. Okay, let's take something like restaurants. Why would restaurants be affected? Well, I mean, people eat, right? How could they be affected? Well, not really. They'll be deeply affected. Here's how. Even before COVID, restaurants, as you know, the way restaurants operate is people go and eat on a Friday and a Saturday, but the rest of the week, the restaurant is not that occupied. In fact, it's pretty empty. So in the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a growth of home food delivery. The pioneers of that in the United States have been Chinese food delivery and pizza delivery. But because you have two couples working at both members of a family working in the couple, et cetera, there was a move towards home delivery so that on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you were delivering home. Friday, Saturday, you were actually a restaurant. But the delivery home would happen from the back of the restaurant, from the kitchen, out. And that was happening. And during COVID, that has been the only business restaurants get. And the Grubhubs, the Uber Eats, the Foodlers of the world have gone up. And then there was another movement called the cloud kitchen. So the basic idea is that why even make it in your kitchen? You can just be a virtual restaurant, and you have these big commissary kitchens where you can cook, and they have a place for the truck to come in. They do quality control. They give you data. They, for example, college kids eat chicken wings between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m., right? And that's the future of the restaurant industry. There will still be restaurants, but a lot of restauranting will go virtual. Okay, what about dry cleaning? I picked dry cleaning because it's such a boring and mundane and yet important business. Well, let me ask you, have you worn a suit recently? Have you had a shirt dry cleaned? Have you had to? That's going to become a difference. So dry cleaning businesses are going to change completely. They're going to have to get into other businesses, maybe to become laundry, home pickup or home delivery laundry. What about farming? Well, yeah, farming will be affected because if in fact people are more, I think there's going to be a big awareness of local food and local supply chains because of what happened. And so local farming will take off. There'll also be more interest in sustainability. So organic will take off. When we have returned the right to be in person with people, I think we will see more farmers markets, more sort of social, because we are missing it. Utilities will change, electrical utilities, because people are working from home a lot more. So the home utility bills will go up, but the work utility bills will actually go down. In fact, offices will downsize. And once people start working from home, they'll use more solar, they'll use more renewable resources. They'll want to know how am I doing, that it'll be gamified. And so, electrical utilities will change. Even water will change. Even water, people say, is this sustainable water? How much energy went into this water? Home construction will change. Well, you might say, why home construction? Well, your home just became your office. My home, I'm actually speaking despite the background from my basement, as you might imagine. And it is not noise proof. So when my kid does ballet upstairs, you hear it. So I think what we will see is kiosks in homes, which are quiet. So mom or dad can work at home and it feels like they're at work with maybe 3 or 4 screens. So you're creating a very immersive work environment. Building construction will change. Buildings have to operate more autonomously. Carpentry will change. I just described to you how homes will change. Well, that means that if you're a carpenter, you're going to have to learn to figure out how to build a home office and probably have to do the wiring as well. The roads will have to change because people will drive less. I could go on and on, but I use these very mundane examples to say the question really is not when you will change and in what way. The question is, how will you change? Because it's going to happen. It's just going to happen. There's no going back on this. Let me end with this slide. It's the second last slide, actually, which is we are putting all our eggs in one basket. It is a digital basket. There's just no two ways around it. And this basket is such that it is going to be impossible for us to, excuse me, it's going to be impossible for us, there, apologies. Yeah, it's going to be impossible for us to ever let it down. These are the registrations of Zoom, the Zoom domain, over the last few months. So this is fake Zoom domains, people trying to fish you into using that domain. So it's going to, cybersecurity is going to become existential. I like to say that the 21st century did not begin in 2000. The 21st century begins in 2021. And what we're going to see is what I call, it's partly as a joke, but partly to emphasize this, digital transformation 2.0, except I call it 2.021, because we are entering a new realm where for the first time, Anthropocene, which is the human planet, is going to depend technology first, everything else second. And I think there is no looking back. I'll just end with a plug for a course which we'll be doing online. It's my regular Radical Innovation course, August 17th through 19th of this year. It's a short course, it's 2 days. We'll be doing it completely online. But it's been a real pleasure to talk to you. I'll go back to this slide and end with that and just say thank you very much. And back to you, Graham, and to the whole team. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Sarma. It's a wonderful talk. It's insightful and inspiring. Let me ask questions. I'll start with, because you talk about a number of industries, but you didn't say too much about education, what that you have been doing. And in fact, the MITx is like a very proactive platform that I think if it's a business, stock probably will triple, like Zoom, because probably you've got lots of users. Could you say something about the MITx, the original idea, and then the current status, and also the future?
Every time a company tries to do anything digital, the question is, why are we doing it? Is this important? Why is this, is it critical? Everything that a company likely ever did that was digital today has become life-saving. So when we did MITx, we actually started with something called OpenCourseWare 20 years ago, where we gave our curriculum away for free to the world. We put it online, and then 9 years ago, we launched MITx, and we created a nonprofit called edX with Harvard. And edX is a platform you can go to and take courses. And we did it because we felt that we knew digital was coming. We didn't know in which form. None of us knew about COVID, but we knew it was coming. And we knew that if we didn't embrace digital, that at some point we would find ourselves at a disadvantage. And we thought one way to embrace it is let's give our curriculum to the world for free. And we established edX. And edX has 130 university partners, 30 million, they're approaching 100 million enrollments. In fact, they just crossed 100 million enrollments. So huge sort of effect. But people would still say, why are we doing this, right? Well, guess what? Suddenly, this is the most important thing. A third of MIT faculty have already worked with us, and so they know how to do digital. So when COVID hit, they knew how to react. MITx and edX, where we offer courses, micro-credentials like the MicroMasters. We also have a paid-only sort of corporate version, which is meant for corporate executives and engineers and people like that, called XPro. It's up and running. It's doing fantastic. Right now, edX is seeing 10x, 15x increases in enrollment. But let me tell you something funny. You know which course has the highest increase in enrollment? It's a religion courses. And that is 15,000x to 35,000x increase in enrollments. Maybe people feel that there's no other help. We need God, and maybe we do. So back to you, Graham.
Yeah, another question is with regarding to the job market. After the COVID-19, certainly the job market has changed dramatically. Would you mind to say something about the job market, and also how you see the future?
Yeah, the job market is going to be deeply impacted. I think our students will be fine generally because MIT students are in high-tech areas, it's high demand, so we're in good shape. But I think a lot of jobs will be deeply impacted. I mean, for example, I personally love art. I'm a huge art fan. I buy art. I go to the museums a lot. But the museums survive on tickets, and the museums have had no tickets sold for the last few years, the last month. So if you're graduating from college and you hope to do something in art, it's not going to be easy right now, right? But that's one thing. The other thing is a lot of companies are in trouble, so they won't be hiring for some time. So a lot of graduating folks will end up freelancing. So I think we're confronting two things. One is a changing job market, good and bad, right? More tech, and some of the stuff we actually makes us human, like art, humanities, may actually be negatively impacted on the one hand, but on the other hand, a much more fluid job market. So what I mean by that is more gig economy, freelancing, etc. So what I'm saying to young people is try and get a consulting job right now. Find someone who wants to hire you. Let's say you're an AI person, to write some code on AI. Just get into it. But I think job market is going to be very changed. I have a book coming out actually in January, which I didn't put in the list, on the future of education for the workforce. But we've been studying that. But that was pre-COVID. COVID just accelerates it by 3 to 4 years.
I see. Oh, so you have another book. I know you have a book coming up in August.
Yeah, I have one in August and one coming up.
Yeah. Awesome. And following to that question, also, the knowledge workers usually can easily convert to remote work or working from home. This kind of pattern. How about the operation-oriented work? Some things already happened with regarding to, for instance, in the warehouse, you have lots more automatic robots. But in general, how the operation-oriented work will change?
Yeah, I mean, there are different types of operations. There's a question there about, for example, resource operations, mines, right? That's still going to be pretty human intensive. But then there are other operations like running a factory, right? So let me give you an example. I think some of us must have watched the SpaceX launch last weekend, on Saturday last weekend, where they launched this the Dragon module on the Falcon rocket to dock with the ISS. There was a workforce. They were all sitting in a room and they were looking at their computers. SpaceX could have launched the whole thing remotely, except the 2 astronauts. So I think what we're going to see is a lot more factory automation because the economy is hurting now. But we need to be careful. The things that we will automate are the things that can be automated. For example, things like part inspection, with a camera, or cleaning with a robot. But a lot of the things that require human beings, like troubleshooting, will require human beings. So I think what we'll see is more automation, but not completely. In the mining industry, you'll see more autonomous vehicles, both from a safety perspective, but also because of manpower. But there'll be some things that you need humans for. You can get rid of it, and that's good. So we will. It depends on the industry.
Right. So now industry, we're also going to talk about another question here is interesting. Say when and how this COVID-19 will impact the R&D institutions. Obviously, it's already impacted, but how in the future?
Well, I think that I've always felt that companies should be doing more D and less R. and the D should be tied to P, which is product, right? So, so my view is that there'll be a lot of development because products, have to change post-COVID. I mean, every product has to change. That's what I said, right? And I think that we need more fundamental research. For example, all the arcane and weird information we knew about viruses is suddenly very valuable. 6 months ago, we would have said, why are we wasting our time studying viruses in bats and their spike protein? Today, that's the only thing we talk about. So our institutional research has suddenly become valuable. So I think you'll see that in research institutions, and company R&D, in my view, should be and will become much more D to P, not R, development to product, because they have to rethink their products. I'll give you an example. The iPhone, my iPhone has face recognition. Well, face recognition does not work with a mask, right? And that made the getting into the iPhone a little irritating. So they released a software update to work with a mask. It doesn't recognize you, but it quickly gives you a password option. So that's a very quick turnaround innovation, but we need that for every industry, whether you're a dry cleaner or a construction company.
Wonderful. Yes. Another question here is also, so normally people consider Industry 4.0 is included in digital transformation. But now you have this digital transformation 2.021. Can you say something, what the big difference between, let's say, current digital transformation 1.0 to 2.021?
Yeah, so Industry 4.0 is a roadmap, okay? Suddenly, and it was a long-term thing. You did this, you did this, you did this. COVID didn't wait for all that. COVID said, do it now, right? So what's happened is a bunch of companies have had to jump 3 years ahead in 3 months. There's a quote from Lenin, who's not my favorite person, but he has a good quote. He says, sometimes change takes decades, and sometimes decades happen in weeks. That's what just happened to us. So the Industry 4.0 vision remains the same, except it isn't, 5 years from now. If you were very close to Industry 4.0, you just did much better than the companies that were not. And the companies that were not have to do it for the next year, right? So all those visions remain the same, except time has been stolen from you, 5 years. And imagine you have a plan with a 7-year plan. Suddenly you're told, oh, sorry, 5 years are gone. Finish it in a year or 2. So that's what's changed.
Right. And here is another question. Let me see how it, let's just, would you mind to say something about the use of the blockchain functionalities post-pandemic?
Yeah, good question. I have always felt blockchain is a brilliant and elegant technology. And I've always struggled to figure out where to use it, despite it being so beautiful. And I think that what will happen with blockchain is a proof mechanism. And so after COVID, we will have lots of small companies wanting to work with each other and having to certify that they did this, they did that, they did this, right? So I think blockchain will become big because it helps us certify. I'm ISO certified, I'm certified to be I'm board certified to do this. We'll do things remotely. You have to find, because you laid off people, you have to find a gig worker to do this, a gig worker to do that. So we'll see a lot of certification, and blockchain will become important again.
Right. That's wonderful. Yeah. And also, based on your talk, your approach seems like based on system dynamics of the MIT. From MIT, like unique. And what do you like? What is a more persuasive way to move an organization to change through the positive loop and negative feedback?
Well, I'll use a simpler thing than system dynamics. I will quote another person I don't particularly like, and that's Churchill. Okay, and Churchill said, "Never waste a crisis." We have an incredible crisis right now, and you have to make the change during the crisis, not after, unfortunately. If you make the change during the crisis, people will listen. During a crisis, people's ears are open and their hearts are open. So I think make the change now. Once things return to the old normal, the comfort sets in. It's very hard for the organization to reshape itself.
Right. And also another area people would like to hear. Before that, I think I would like to ask a questions related to, because MIT is the place where future is designed today. And you have a book coming up talking about how science is transforming how people learn. That's really the future oriented. I wonder if you can say something, like basically give us an overview of your new book, upcoming book.
Yeah, look, I mean, I will say, I mean, we're in an academic institution. Professor Sinan, or all whom you listen to next, is a professor. I'm a professor. We're in the business of learning. One of the things that's happened in COVID is we've learned the importance of resiliency and repurposing. Resiliency is surviving information, knowledge, news, fake news, figuring it all out, figuring out what's real, finding your way through the fog, right? That's resiliency and surviving. And the other piece is repurposing, which means that you were not a digital expert yesterday. Guess what? After COVID, you have to become a digital expert because you're using Zoom. You were not a marketing expert yesterday, but guess what? You just got laid off from your job and you have to become the chief marketing officer of your consulting firm, of which you're the only employee, right? So we are going to have to become extremely agile as human beings. And to me, learning is it. And if we have to figure out the science of learning, just as we figured out the science of medicine and health, to make ourselves survive in this new world.
Right. That's exactly. We were looking forward to, certainly we're looking forward to reading that book and to learn more, the details, the insight. And people are asking, are there some like possible pandemic-proof job examples, such as firefighters, police officers, and paramedics, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, emergency services in general is more pandemic proof. I think knowledge working, right? Because the more we have, I think we have encroached on nature's territory. I don't want to sound spiritual. And the result is things are breaking down. You know, social structures are breaking down, etc. The solution is knowledge. I think in general, knowledge work is important. It's ironic. Either the things that you cannot do without your hands, right? Or the things you cannot do without your brain. Those are the ends you want to be at. Everything else is sort of suspect.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Professor Sarma. And also, we also for the wonderful talk and also for the wonderful discussions. We had a lot of good questions too.